Welcome to the World According to Christy podcast. This show will motivate you, inspire you, and give you tools to activate your goals and dreams, whether those dreams are entrepreneurial, corporate, or personal.
This episode is sponsored by the Faith to Conquer Fear Inner Circle small group coaching and mentoring program. If you are ready to be a part of a safe and supportive environment that helps you increase your confidence, increase your faith, and conquer your fears so you can do all that God has called you to do, schedule a free Faith to Conquer Fear strategy session with me, Christy Demetrakis, at faithtoconquerfear.com.
Hello, and welcome to the World According to Christy podcast. I'm Christy Demetrakis, author of Faith to Conquer Fear, Inspiration to Achieve Your Dreams, and Amazon bestseller, Faith to Conquer Fear, The Journey. As I tell you every week, I am so glad you have chosen to join me. As if you've listened to my episode 0, my trailer, you know that I have a variety of things each month. So some episodes you'll hear me talking, pontificating about whatever I feel is important that week. Other weeks you'll hear from some of my vintage friends, my old friends from my Faith to Conquer Fear and Sell Your Message radio shows. And other weeks you'll hear from some of my new friends. And that is exactly what we're doing this week. Today I have another special guest, Dr. Monique Johnson, the founder of Dr MCJ Consulting, LLC. Monique is a board-certified counselor, certified career coach, and diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, dedicated to supporting individuals, executives, and professional teams to overcome challenges to reach their goals, as well as promoting diverse and inclusive environments. Dr. Monique has experience working with schools and organizations to diversify their workplace cultures through inclusive planning, training, program development, strategic planning, recruitment, talent acquisition, and retention initiatives. She is passionate about creating safe spaces and impacting positive change from the inside out and the outside in. Monique, welcome to the World According to Christy podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
I am so glad you are here. And before we even get started, I have to let people know, because a lot of my guests, I always say how I know them, right? Some people I know, some people I don't, but most people I know. And you and I met, how many years ago has it been now?
Maybe 3?
I think probably maybe 3 years ago, we randomly ended up sitting next to each other at this conference. And we had great conversation. We sat next to each other the entire day. We actually exchanged information. And then just recently, I learned that your husband, who I was working with on something else at Procter & Gamble, was your husband.
Right.
So it's just the weirdest thing. And I went, oh my gosh. And what was so funny, and I don't know if he told you, when he gave me your phone number so that I could text you, I said, hey, I'd like to have her on my podcast. And when he gave me your number, I went to text your number in, and you were already in my phone.
Oh,
so
wow.
I had you already. I was like, oh, she's already in my phone. So that was obviously a great connection because, I had you in my phone. And I'm so glad to have the opportunity to have this conversation with you on this podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's great to be reconnected.
Yes. So before we get into it, tell us a little bit about you, your background. I already said you have a husband, but tell us a little bit about you.
So I have a husband. I also have 3 children, 2 college students and a junior in high school. We have been in this area for 6 years now. This is our second time living here in this area. We love it. We enjoy it. I am originally from Massachusetts, so I'm a New Englander. And I relocated to Pennsylvania for graduate school. That's where I met my husband. And currently I'm an entrepreneur. When I moved here, I started out as an independent contractor doing some work with school districts. And I met a retired principal from the Princeton School District. And she asked me why I was an independent contractor as opposed to an entrepreneur. And I said, that's a good question. And so it got my wheels turning, and I decided to pursue entrepreneurship. And so I've been working, as a consultant and a coach for about 5 years now.
Okay.
Independently.
Yeah.
And I'm I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Please. No.
And I work in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I provide consulting services for organizations and schools and nonprofits, as well as I provide career coaching for individuals. I believe that we're all capable of transformation and change, and that is my mission, to work with individuals and organizations to change for the better.
I love it. Well, you know, you probably couldn't have picked a better industry to be in, especially right now with everything that is happening. And so with that, let's just jump right in, because diversity and inclusion, or equality and inclusion, whatever terminology folks tend to use, that's a really hot topic right now. Why do you think, Monique, that it is so much more a focus right now than it has been historically?
I really believe, like so many others, the killing of George Floyd on television, and everyone seeing, you know, the blatant act of racism and violence, I think it really spurred our nation, and it revealed things that were just, you know, just unbelievable, what we saw and what we witnessed, and it was undeniable. And so I really believe that seeing that and the behavior that was demonstrated was really a catalyst, because, you know, people were protesting not here just in this country, but they were protesting all over the world in solidarity with us and what they saw. So I really believe that people, you know, it was something that they couldn't avoid, couldn't deny. And so it really just caused, you know, this upheaval, this uprising, and it was long overdue as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And why do you think, because these are discussions that I've had with a lot of people, but why do you think we've seen, this is not new, right? The racism is not new. The killing, not new. We had Trayvon Martin. That was, you know, and there's been a lot of, and I don't want to discount anyone who has died,
exactly.
But Trayvon Martin is the one that just like sticks in my head, right? Why do you think that was not the response that we're getting now? And there's no right or wrong answer.
Well, I mean, part of it, I think, is because we didn't see it. You know, people have to see things with their own eyes. And we weren't, you know, it was almost like, you know, we were kind of there with the whole George Floyd thing. It was like we were bystanders, you know.
We were all holding our breath.
Right. Holding our, exactly. Whereas with Trayvon Martin, it's more, you know, kind of what was it, Zimmerman's word against, you know, against Trayvon's. And I don't know that there were witnesses around and people to say, you know, this is what happened. So, you know, he's a free man as a result of that right now, doing crazy things.
Crazy things. Again,
exactly.
Agree. You know, and I look at, you know, 2020 has been the weirdest year ever, right? And ever is relative, but in our lifetime, let's just say that, in our lifetime. And I firmly believe it was just kind of this coming together of all these things, right? Because people are in their one space, that, you know, nobody's traveling, everybody's kind of, there's only so many things you can do. Look at media, stay in the house. At the time this happened, people were pretty much on lockdown. And I just think it was just kind of this perfect storm of things that happened all at the same time, at a time when people had to pay attention. Like you had to pay attention. You couldn't miss it. You had to make a choice to miss it. And I think that that's probably what's starting all of this. And I know the big discussion is, at least the discussions I'm hearing, is how do we ensure that this is not just a moment, but it's a movement. And probably a lot of the work that you do really helps companies to figure out how this becomes more embedded in the culture versus the topic of the day.
Exactly. I did want to add to something that you said also, and I think you sort of alluded to it, but we also, during that same time, there was Breonna Taylor. You know, it all happened sort of back to back to back. Then there was Ahmaud Arbery, I believe, was
Yes,
first.
yes.
And then, George Floyd, and then Breonna Taylor. So it was just, it was like too much. It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think also had a huge impact in why, diversity has become kind of a big point for corporations and for companies. It was kind of like a ripple effect.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Exactly. And so, again, I know my company, I would say Procter & Gamble. People know I work for Procter & Gamble, but I applaud P&G for doing the right thing before it was a thing.
Exactly.
Right? And that's one of the things that most impresses me about the company. Is the company perfect? No, because it's made up of people who are not perfect, right?
Exactly.
But I feel like the company tries its best to do the right thing by society, with the brands, with the people, all those types of things. Mm-hmm. So with that said, though, there's all this attention to diversity, and there's companies who've never done it before, right? And all of a sudden they're like, shoot, we don't have a program. We don't have this. We don't have that. So I'll start with, what are the conversations that you're having with companies and or schools that don't have anything right now? Let's start with that question. What are the types of conversations that you are having or you would have with companies that aren't doing anything right now or scrambling?
Right. Well, I would want them to begin to think about their mission, what they stand for and what they are looking to do, what their message is. And, what does their message say? Is there any demonstration of diversity as a I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought here, but are they demonstrating in some way that diversity is important to them? Is it in their mission? Do they have a strategic plan? What are they looking to do? What are their goals? What message do they want to send? Oftentimes there are organizations that just want to check the box. They're not really committed. They don't have, they're not really invested. It's just kind of performative.
Yes.
It's performative types of behavior where they're just doing things just to say, hey, we donated to this cause, or hey, we contributed to the United Negro College Fund, right, or whatever it is, Yeah. So really they have to think about what they are looking to do, what message they want to send, why is diversity important to them, and then begin to develop their plan around that. I've worked with school districts who have no strategic plan.
Yeah.
We begin to create a strategic plan. We've formed diversity committees. And I will also echo that P&G, I believe, is they are leaders. They walk the walk, they talk the talk, they provide the resources. Oftentimes, you go work with organizations and they don't have any money, or they don't want to allocate the money or whatever. I don't know, but there's no transformation without transaction. So if if it's important to you, then you have to have a budget. You have to have some kind of resources to add to the initiative. So yeah, there are just so many different directions. I've led focus groups with organizations to really get a sense of how people are feeling, people that work in the organization, as well as school districts. I've had focus groups with students who are students, and really encourage them to talk about their experience and what they're going through and what it feels like for them. So focus groups can be very beneficial. I did a huge report, 60-page report with transcriptions of words as the data of what people were saying. They want to understand the meaning of an experience for groups. And so, I gave it to them. But yes, I think that there are just so many different ways that you can look at an organization and, begin to make the transformation. You can look at the employees and the diversity there as well, and their recruiting strategies and their hiring strategies. And, I've had the fortune of working on all types of initiatives, including those types of initiatives. But yes, I just, I think you just have to start at the bare bones and the bare basics. What have you done, and why is this important to you?
Mm-hmm. And I think the why is it important to you is that's a great first question, because if they've never focused on it before, the why transparently is probably because we realize we've missed the boat. It's the right thing to do, but their heart may not be in it. So how do you know if a company's intentions are genuine? So let's just assume they actually have a program.
Mm-hmm.
They may actually have something, right?
Okay.
But how do you know it's genuine? So I go back to that moment versus a movement versus transactional versus transformation. How do you know that they're really serious?
Well, that's a tough question. I mean, I know how I would know just as a consultant. I've worked with different organizations, with schools that have done some things that I think were demonstration that they weren't as serious about things, where a person was terminated. The diversity person that they hired me to work with was terminated because they needed to make a reduction in force.
Wow.
And the person,
that's a clear sign.
Yeah, she was the only person of color. And they felt that her position was the one that needed to go. And so we'd worked together for 2 years and had done quite a bit we made great strides, I thought, and there was no performance issue. So that was concerning to me. After, as a consultant, I'm hired for 2 years of work, and then you terminate that person. And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. So nonetheless, I mean, that's just one specific incident. But I think that if, again, if there's no funding, if there's no support from leadership, it has to come from leadership. They have to help to drive the initiative. It can't feel like, Groundhog Day over and over again, where you're starting over. Oftentimes, when people change or leadership change or someone leaves or this person leaves, and you feel like you're starting all over again, every time. So there's so many different ways. But I would say if leadership doesn't have their hand in it and they're not supportive of it to help to drive some of the initiatives, then, chances are it's not going to be very successful. And, if you're experiencing a lot of pushback where people are not wanting to be a part, I would say it's not genuine. And if you're going through that as well. And then the resources are really important. I hate to talk about money, but if there needs to be some financial input to do the things that you need to do.
Agree.
Whether it be to hire a consultant, or whether it be to provide resources for a program, or whether it be to buy certain books or whatever it is that you need. You don't want to spend the money, then that is a huge issue.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue. And, even working in diversity, there are instances where I've not been paid for things, or it takes forever. Yeah. If this is important to you, why wouldn't you, do the things that are necessary to? So those are just some of the ways to kind of get a sense of whether or not it's genuine. If it feels like they're just checking boxes, and there are instances, I've also had experiences where you can only go but so far.
Yeah.
You can only go but so far, where you try to push the envelope a little bit. Well, why don't we go ahead and explore this? Or why don't we go ahead and explore that? And why don't we have the board engage in some kind of diversity training, for lack of a better word? If you don't like that word, we could call it something else. Why not have the school board do, some kind of experiential exercises around diversity and team building? It becomes increasingly difficult when you begin to make those types of recommendations.
Which is a gauge of the commitment. to your point.
Exactly.
So how do
Exactly.
this is a great question, right? Because everybody's talking it right now. And the one thing, and I don't want to get back to politics again, but we will just for a moment. The one thing that, and Van Jones, CNN said this, and I thought when he said it, he articulated exactly what I was thinking, but I was like, thank you for saying it. But when you look at the map, right? Election night, we're looking at we're looking for the reds and the blues, right? Whichever side of the camp you're on, you want more of one color or the other. And I remember personally feeling, and I still feel this way, felt like, wow, for all the talk I've been hearing about we support you, we need to make a change, we need to change some systemic things, whether it's in corporate America, whether it's outside, whatever, we support you. And then I look at that map of the United States and I see majority red.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what a bunch of crock, right? Really? Because if you really meant that, we wouldn't be seeing all this red.
Right.
And so what do you do? And how, and you started to get to this because people have to want to, but how do you help people get there? If they're not there, and there's unconscious bias and there's just bias.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get people over that hump, first of all, to realize that they have some biases that are probably impacting the hiring decisions, that are impacting the promotions, that all the things, right? What are some tools, what are some things you do to help get people past that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you. The first thing is that people have to believe that racism and bias exists, because there are people that don't believe it's real, but it is in fact very real. We have to start with ourselves. A lot of times people want to worry about other people, but we have to start with ourselves. And basically, anyone who has a brain has some bias. And even though I, provide training and I'm a consultant, I have bias, and it's an ongoing journey. And I don't ever think I've arrived, because I'm always challenging myself in that way to try to think differently. So for a long time, I found myself frustrated because I wanted so much to change people and to kind of, enlighten people, and like, no, you got it all wrong. We need to be united and love one another. And I still believe that. However, my approach is different in that I am not there to convince or persuade by any means. That is not my role, is to persuade anyone or to convince anyone, because you set yourself up for frustration. However, I am there to plant seeds, and oftentimes with this type of work, you may not ever see, that seed begin to grow. It might be months later. They may think about something that you said, and it may impact them in a different way. So that's kind of the approach that I take. But when I'm working with people in real time, I do challenge people. I really encourage people to look at themselves and to just really think about how the mind works and how we use filters every day, as you said, and those biases, how those biases impact the decisions that we make, impact our behavior, and how it impacts on other people. Yeah. And really encouraging people to sort of put themselves in other people's shoes, and to really think about the fact that, their privilege may have never, they may never have the experiences that we have because of the privilege that they have. So I really try to engage people in activities around those types of experiences where they're actually just really tapping into their empathy, if they the empathy, and really trying to understand, what the experience is like for other people. Yeah. I just finished a a course with some graduate students at Xavier University, School of Psychology, graduate students, and they are working on being inclusive facilitators. So they have an initiative there called Take It On 2020. And basically they want to be leaders in terms of how people engage in conversations around difficult topics like religion and race and politics. And so that was, they, hired me to help them to go through this journey. Now it was only 4 sessions and they're not completely ready yet to do it on their own, but it was, it was uncomfortable at times. And I told them that it's, it should be, it's supposed to be uncomfortable at times.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. So, I had them, they wanted to role play. So I gave them role play examples, I gave them like a George Floyd. I'd made up a scenario of George Floyd and the person says, he was a criminal anyway. I don't know why people are, that was the opening statement, and then they had to role play it. And they were very, very uncomfortable.
I bet they were, yes.
So yeah, there are so many different ways that you can tackle that type of experience where you're getting people or encouraging people to change their worldview or at least to see things differently.
Yeah. So, and this will be my last question, because this is a conversation we could have for a really long time. But I know, again, in the midst of all that has happened in the last, call it 6 months, it's hard to find how to be an anti-racist. Like the book, it's hard to find white fragility. I mean, there's some things that everybody is trying to read. But what are your recommendations for people who know, what, I just want to be more aware, right? I'm not acknowledging that I'm a. What are your recommendations?
Oh, you froze up for a minute.
Oh, did I freeze? Oh,
yeah,
you're
not frozen question. Now, but so I didn't hear the whole question.
I was saying so for people who, there's a lot of talk about which books to read these days, whether it's white fragility, whether it's how to be an anti-racist, all these different things that people who just want to be enlightened want to read now. What are your personal picks? What could people watch or read if they just really want to become more aware and learn how to support?
Oh, let's see. I would say, well, I do love Ibram Kendi's book, How to Be Anti-Racist. I think his book is awesome. I also like Courageous Conversations. It has a subtitle, but I don't remember, by Glenn Singleton. Okay. It's for educators, but it's a really good book in terms of how people respond to conversations about race. Some people are, intellectual, and so they want facts. And then there are other people who respond emotionally, and then so there are these different ways that people respond to race conversations. But I think that's a really good book, but it is, more education-based, Courageous Conversations. There was one I just bought and I cannot remember the full title of it. I don't have it with me. And I forget her name. She has a very unique name. Again, White Fragility is a good one. I think it's old stuff, but anything by Peggy McIntosh, especially for white individuals, on white privilege.
Okay.
She has some essays. They're actually even on, you can Google them, Peggy McIntosh, and her, different essays and her different work will come up.
Okay.
Let's see, there's so many. I mean, I could go.
There's a lot.
There's a ton.
That's a good start. That's a good start for folks, because there's no shortage of information out there, especially now. And I'll tell you, one of the shows, as I'm about to give you an opportunity to let people know how to contact you, one of the shows that was on Netflix that I had never seen, and my husband is very enlightened. Like his mom was a civil rights activist. He's just grown up with this. I admit I have not. And so the 13th Amendment which was, oh my gosh, I think for however long the show was, an hour and a half, my mouth was hanging open the whole time. And I could not believe that I was not more aware, right? And I just could not believe how things happen. When you talk about systemic racism,
right.
That is, if you don't know what systemic racism is, watch 13th.
Right.
Just watch it. And that is a great example. But anywho, Dr. Monique, it has been a pleasure to have you on to talk about equality and inclusion, diversity and inclusion, what companies can do, how people should be thinking about it. Tell people how to contact you.
Well, you can visit my website, drmoniquecjohnson.com, and the doctor is drmoniquecjohnson.com. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram at MCJ Consulting. I am on Twitter, MCJ Consulting, and also on Facebook, Dr. Monique C. Johnson. So yes, I'm out there.
Very awesome. And we didn't talk about career coaching today. I'll have you on another time to talk about that because that's always a great topic. But she's also a career coach. So if you are interested at all, please go to or need some help. Hey, set up a 30-minute call with her. You can go on her website and she has an option for you to just sign up for a 30-minute strategy session with her. Just to have the conversation. I always say it never hurts. We're just talking.
That's right.
So please do that. Well, again, Monique, thank you for being my guest. And thank you all for joining the World According to Christy podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. I'm doing what I love. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Do you like free resources? Tools that will help you accomplish stuff? I have great resources for you to download for free. Visit faithtoconquerfear.com. You can download free chapters of my books, video series, declaration journals, and more. Visit faithtoconquerfear.com today.
Thank you for listening to the World According to Christy podcast. Remember to subscribe to ensure you receive updates on upcoming episodes. Check out free resources to help you increase your faith, increase your confidence, and conquer your fears at faithtoconquerfear.com.